Alrighty, so this isn't going to be like a full-on like tutorial on how I did the new season of Heroes Arena or anything, but I did do Challenger this week. I normally do the first 2 weeks as Champion just because they're a lot easier to do on that, and I don't have to worry too much. I just typically make sure that I do at least 4 weeks of Challenger so that way I can get all of the LR coins that I need. But I'm just going to show you the first 2 teams, but the one that I want to focus on the most is the one with Queen Elizabeth. I did my entire first tower with her on like a Sins team sort of setup, so I wanted to kind of show that off a little bit just in case you need sort of a team to use in Heroes Arena and you have the units for it, of course. But this was the first team that I used. I think this was on Tower 3 if I'm not mistaken, which is basically centered around using Albedo to tank because she sort of has that first turn taunt on. They have to hit her basically, which is really nice because she's super tanky, so you can use Freyr with Holy Relic and Nanashi to boost stats and everything, which is nice. And then you're actually using the Shalltear because she actually heals your teammates quite a bit with her skills, which is really, really nice. So obviously the Albedo counter does a lot. You can kind of see that. But the idea behind the team is you just let her tank. You have the other 2 that kind of deal damage a little bit or just boost stats mainly. You're just kind of using them for supports. But the whole point is to put bleed on with Shalltear and then just get her. They're going to attack into you enough to get Berserk activated, and then you just use those exploit cards from Shalltear, and it's basically just going to heal up your team quite a bit. So you can push ult with her if you want. Obviously, make sure that you're trying to attack with some of your other characters if they get low, so that way you can try to get some lifesteal and everything. But this team was surprisingly super smooth, went very, very well. But yeah, if you need it. The only thing to note for gear is that Shalltear is on attack crit, but the rest of the team is on HP crit resistance. I think my Freyr was actually on attack crit resistance, if I'm not mistaken, but crit resistance across the board except for Shalltear because you're just trying to do damage with her. The next team that I used was, of course, the Angel team. Originally, I wanted to use the new green Elat because she's got a boost for all stats for the first week, which I recorded this in right before the actual update came out with Queen Elizabeth, so she was still boosted at the time. It unfortunately didn't work out too well. I just don't have her cosmetics and stuff maxed out enough, so the Freya that I went up against during some of these battles was unfortunately targeting her too much, and she was just dying a little bit too easily. So as much as I wanted to take advantage of having those stat boosts and everything, it just didn't quite work out. So we swapped over to the LR Liz, which actually was quite nice. If you don't know, just you get a bunch of recovery rate and stuff like that from her passive. So I can basically just use her to increase my defense-related stats. We can use LR Margaret to sort of cleanse and stuff as well. And I don't know, honestly, Mael kind of does most of the work. You can't be stat lowered or anything. I feel like this is pretty normal setup for most of the Goddess teams and everything. Mael is on an attack crit damage set. The rest of the team is on an HP crit resistance set, except for Tarmiel. I actually give him my triple defense gear from the blue Tarmiel and then put crit resistance gear in the middle for those, so that way he's taking less damage. The idea is you just want to make sure that whenever you get to tier, you are not getting absolutely steamrolled by those crits. So crit resistance gear in the middle seems to be the new standard. Beforehand, I used to use a lot of crit defense or crit resistance gear, but it seems like crit resistance is now the go-to because tier is just such a pain. The only stipulation, I guess, to that is in the last team that I used, which was with Queen Elizabeth, I did use a Sins team that has Lost Vein on it. That one, I would say you maybe want to run Lost Vein with crit defense gear, so that way he can still be crit and level up his cards, but for the most part, you still don't want him to die, of course. So having some sort of gear to sort of mitigate damage and everything is preferable there, but these are just some quick little matches that I wanted to show with the other 2 teams, just to kind of give you an idea of what I was using for this is actually the second tower. I used the Shalltear team for the third tower, the Goddess team for the second tower, and then the next team is on the first tower. So yeah, let's look at this one real quick. So while I was putting this team together and I started to look at my gear situation, I noticed that if I put everyone except for Lostvayne on an HP defense set, I was actually going to be able to out CC. Obviously, not everybody's going to be able to do that. I ended up going for just the CC play, and you know, going first is a really big win in these game modes. So if you can go first and you can, you know, actually have the luxury to do so, it does help quite a bit. So if you do need to go second, you can obviously just run whatever sort of regular sets you want. I think Deanne still needs to be on HP, of course. You can probably get away with... I would probably go HP on Liz as well, and then... Bond does a pretty good amount of damage, and he lifesteals a good amount back whenever you actually get some decent damage off with him. So I would run attack on him and Lostvayne, and if you're not going to run normal rolls or like normal gear on them because you want, or like if you're going to go second, for example, I would probably run crit defense on Lostvayne, and then the rest of the team would run crit resistance middle pieces, just so that way you're not taking a whole lot of extra damage or anything. Like I said, I know that not everybody's going to be able to pull it off like this, because this was kind of like the turning point where I finally realized that I might actually be a whale. I really don't want to call myself a whale because I really don't spend that much money on the game, but I guess over the amount of time that I've been playing and sort of building up the account and everything, to defend myself a little bit, this team does have a ton of CC. The new Liz has a really nice amount of CC. I have Deanne and Lostvayne both 6'6". Lostvayne is an LR character, so he has a lot of CC and a big stat boost, of course, as well. But yeah, honestly, once I was able to go first, it kind of just was crazy how much of a difference it made. I have good damage reduction and everything because of Deanne and Bon. I do think that you're only going to be able to get the most use out of Liz if you have higher dupes. Mine is only 1/6. So do take that into consideration. I was still able to beat this whole thing without losing and having to reset at all in one go, which was actually, you know, pretty surprising, I would say. But even at 1/6, I think that she still did a really good job. Her, you know, utility and everything with the stun and stuff is great. Her damage on the AoEs was good. The ultimate, of course, is not a super big factor. I guess you could potentially ult rush with her if you wanted to, if you have higher ult levels and you just want to get the attack-related stats from her ult. But overall, I don't think that it was super necessary. I could basically just guarantee a wipe with my Lostvayne ultimate. You could see here, like, I had really good HP. I wasn't too worried about making sure that I needed to rush for Deanne's ult or anything. That is the one big factor, is if you start to get a little low, you can just ult rush with Deanne, use her ultimate because it's going to heal your allies depending on how much damage it does. Higher dupes is obviously a little bit more preferred because you're going to heal back more, but overall, I would say that this was pretty smooth. I did pull a couple of extra copies of Bon in my festival summons for Liz, so being able to get a little bit more use out of his like debuffs and stuff was kind of nice. Obviously, in this scenario, it's not working too well because it's a goddess team, but you know, just being able to go first, put up the stance and everything was fantastic. Rushing for ultimates and stuff like that because they have a ton of AoEs and everything with Lostvayne was super easy. Just making sure that I'm pretty much good to go. You obviously want to be a little bit cautious. You want to make sure that you're not going into the next match with you know, a lot of health lost if possible. Obviously, sometimes you don't have the luxury. Sometimes they might have an ultimate in hand. You don't have a way to remove it or whatever the case may be, and you have to just sort of go for the win. But for the most part, if you can just kill the big DPS characters off, like Mael would have been better to kill earlier in this if, well, actually, I don't mind leaving him for last because once you kill a bunch of the extra goddess characters, he starts to drop off as far as his actual damage dealt goes. But making sure you get rid of the big threats on the team, or even like big stat boosters, for example. I know the Catastrophe team is one where you kind of want to go for Roxy because she's going to do the most damage to you, but at the same time, if you end up killing the blue mono on the team, she's one of the biggest reasons why they're doing damage in the first place. Like, she does a lot of stat boosting for the team, so getting rid of her can be really nice. There's just, you kind of have to pick and choose whoever the biggest threat on the team is. Try to get rid of them first, so that way you don't have to worry about them. Obviously, Tyr is kind of the biggest issue with a lot of these runs nowadays. He is kind of the biggest threat because he's going to lower your crit resistance. He's going to use that AoE, and if he crits on it, he is going to do a ton of damage and more than likely wipe some of your characters out, which means you have to either put a new team together or reset the tower and start over, which is obviously not what you want to do. So I do think that this is getting a little bit easier, of course, as time goes on. Some of the characters that are coming out now have a lot more CC, of course, and, you know, just they're tankier in general, have better stats and stuff, so that's great. Obviously, newer, more modern characters are just more insane in general, so that is helping quite a bit. I can only assume that the next season of Heroes Arena is actually going to have Albedo on some of these enemy teams, which is going to be incredibly annoying, so there might end up being some sort of change to that, which then again, well, I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter because you have to fight 3 different characters' teams. I was going to say you could potentially just use Liz to get rid of the stances, but it's not like you can use her for all 3 towers, of course. So might be some interesting team changes when it comes to the next Heroes Arena. But for now, this one actually seemed like it wasn't really too bad for me. Like, I mean, I know that I've got a pretty decent box and everything going at this point, but I'm slowly getting more used to this game mode. It's not nearly as bad, and I'm finally getting, you know, some easier wins, because obviously whenever Heroes Arena very first came out, it was ridiculous how tough it was to even attempt Challenger difficulty. So yeah, you can see here I was missing some extra HP, which was a little bit concerning, of course, especially considering you can see I'm going into the Tyr lineup right here, so that is quite stressful, especially since I'm running regular gear. But the great thing about running the Sins team up against this comp is that obviously if I can just lower his attack or his crit chance with Bond, he doesn't crit me, and then he doesn't do a whole lot of damage anyway. Once you can kind of figure out a way to stop him from critting, it really does make all the difference in the world. So that was fantastic. He does actually run Tarmiel Link on this one, so that was kind of annoying. I do end up disabling my Bond here, but once he doesn't have the crit chance, he just double attacks in, and it doesn't do that much damage. You can see here, like, Lost Vein took a decent little chunk there, and it would have been kind of nice if he would have crit Lost Vein, so that way I could have actually leveled up my cards, but I think I probably would have died. So the trade-off on not dying versus ranking up my cards potentially is, you know, I think it's a no-brainer on that one. So either way, that's pretty much it. I don't know if it would be worth just leaving the rest of this sort of gameplay for you to watch if you want. Maybe I'll just speed the rest of this up and just let you see it if you want to. But I think this is pretty much going to be it for the voiceover for the video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or anything you want me to answer about my run, or you know, you need gear suggestions or whatever, feel free to ask. I'm not a wizard for this game, of course. Like, there's still things that I have to learn and, you know, mess around with. A lot of the times I look up tutorials and stuff on a lot of this stuff too. But I'm happy to give you sort of any info that I have on what I used or anything, maybe some tips or whatever. But that's pretty much it from me. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of this. If you want to, I'll just speed up the rest of it, and then yeah, you guys have a nice day.
逃れることはできない。
今度こそ蹴りをつける。